I've travelled to Richebourg in northern France, and I'm standing on the cinder track, still a cinder track today, that cuts across this open landscape, crisscrossed by drainage ditches. And it was here, a position known as the Boar's Head, towards where the trees are, that two battles, one in May 1915, one in June 1916, men of the Royal Sussex Regiment made an assault here. The first one on the 9th of May as part of the Battle of Albers Ridge in 1915 saw the Cinque Ports Battalion attack here, and in this field on my right, the wheat field, the lads from Wadhurst, the Wadhurst Company, a small Sussex village, attacked towards the tree line, coming under murderous fire, and something like 23 of them were killed in the fighting here. For such a small Sussex community, this was a devastating day. And history repeated itself a year later when the 11th, 12th and 13th Southdowns battalions of the Royal Sussex attacked across the same ground, with the 12th and 13th leaving their trenches, leading the attack towards what was called the Boar's Head, a curvature in the German lines. And in the fighting that lasted several hours in the German trenches, 365 men were killed in action and 1,100 wounded and missing. One of the Southdowns veterans that I interviewed back in the 1980s referred to this as the day Sussex died. And those casualties affected something like 77 towns and villages. The echoes of their deaths went from here in these fields at Richebourg across the whole county of Sussex. And this is a corner of a foreign field that will ever be part of the Southdowns stories. One of the good things to do when you revisit a battlefield is to bring some objects that connect you to that part of the old front line. And I've got with me two identity disc dog tags from men of the Southdowns battalions who fought here in the attack on the Boar's Head in June of 1916. They were in the two assault battalions, the 12th and the 13th. And this is a private purchase aluminium identity disc that the soldiers wore round their wrist. This lad was in the Eastbourne company of the 12th Battalion. He was wounded here but survived. And Private Lightfoot was in the 13th Battalion, and he went over on the 30th of June and was wearing this identity disc round his neck and was one of the men badly wounded here, sadly dying of his wounds some months later. So these two objects carried into battle by soldiers here on the 30th of June 1916, Southdowns men attacking the Boar's Head just ahead of me there, link us to that terrible day that Sussex died. The battlefield here at the cinder track at Richebourg is an evocative part of the old front line. I've been coming here for many, many years. It's still a cinder track today, and it leads you across the battlefields of Albers Ridge of May 1915 through to the attack here by the Southdowns battalions on the 30th of June 1916. That took place towards the Boar's Head, which is just across the fields towards those trees. The men who survived that battle referred to it as the day Sussex died. A corner of northern France, quiet and perhaps less frequently visited, but yet the scene of carnage and casualties more than a century ago. 365 Royal Sussex soldiers being killed here and 1,100 wounded in just one day. But a corner of a field here in France for me that always connects me to the story of these Sussex men. So I've come to the grave of Nelson Victor Carter here at the Royal Irish Rifles graveyard at Levante. He's in a plot of men that were moved from the battlefield around the Boar's Head in the 1920s. His was an isolated burial, and he was brought back here to be permanently remembered in this cemetery rather than alongside the other men of the Southdowns who were buried at the time in St Vast Post. And jumping on to the 1980s, when I began to research the story of the Southdowns, I traced his daughter, Jessie Baker, very proud of her father, still had his Victoria Cross, used to wear it at ceremonies such as Alba's Ridge Day. And when she died, she asked that some of her ashes be scattered on this grave. So it kind of acts as a beacon, really, not just to the bravery of one man in that attack in 1916, but to the wider story of the Southdowns and the families that they left behind, and the men who survived this war and went home with the memories of comrades lost in battles like the attack at the Boar's Head at Richebourg.